back to Unhinged Addiction, ADHD and addiction, and how these two are hand in hand. I wanted to do a podcast on this, and I'm going to explain to you from just personal experience how having ADHD can lead you to addiction so much easier and why addiction is so much more common. And again, I'm just sharing from lived experience. There is, if you do the research on it, whether it is through Google, talking to different therapists and stuff out there, you're going to notice that there's a huge correlation between ADHD and addiction. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol, cocaine, a lot of this. And it was something I didn't know. It's not an excuse to be an addict, but it's something that you need to be aware of. I go by the Mr. Impulsive on TikTok. I go by the Mr. Impulsive on Instagram, Eric Zink on Facebook, or Eric B. Zink on YouTube. Feel free to check me out at ericbzink.com, which is my website. But, I want to get into it of ADHD. The thing you have to realize is it's not just in your head. It's not something to be dismissed. Our brains with ADHD, we don't produce dopamine correctly. We don't harness dopamine correctly. And the frontal cortex of our brain isn't even developed in a sense correctly and at the same speed as non-ADHD people. So when it comes to what that frontal precortex is, this whole front part of our brain is where I like to always just put it like the logic is. And so we're very impulsive. We're not going to think things through. Rejection sensory dysphoria is real. You feel like kind of an outcast. You want to fit in. You want to be normal. You want to slow down. People with ADHD don't realize that most people don't have a massive internal dialogue. ADHD, we're having conversations in our head. We are talking in our head. Like, it's amazing how our brain is just nonstop. It's very exhausting. That's why we kind of hit that like 4 or 5 o'clock shutdown. And this is part of being ADHD. It's a struggle out there. And a lot of times people don't realize that. And you have like good dopamine days and bad dopamine days. It doesn't matter how many different amino acids like L-theanine and L-tyserone and stuff that you take to help produce dopamine or sleep or diet. Medication, I think, is huge, but even then, let's face it, stimulant medications do have a side of addiction to them. But for somebody with ADHD, like, they don't amp us up. And I don't think that's what people really realize is, like, even with myself, I take 10 milligrams of Adderall between about 7:30 now. I've actually upped it a little bit earlier because I wake up earlier. And then I take another dose of 10 milligrams between 12:30-ish, sometimes 1. No later than 1, though. And that helps me get through the day. I'm not bouncing off the walls. I'm not tweaking out or geeking out. Like, I feel like a normal human being. It really stops a lot of this internal dialogue I have, and I can focus and be like, okay, I got to do A, B, C, and D, and I don't get distracted as easily. I don't lose my personality. If I take too much, I do. If I take too much, I get super hyper-focused. And so there you have to really find that right dose, but man, there is this huge stigma that, it's dangerous, you're going to get hooked to it. And yes, there is a dependency side to it, but I'm going to just say this, that anytime I've been properly on my meds, I have not had a challenge with alcohol, and I haven't had a challenge with cocaine. And the problem is I've ran into a lot of people in my life, ex-wives and stuff even, who are like, didn't believe in ADHD. And would get to the point they would tell me, like, don't take your meds anymore. And so I wouldn't take my meds anymore because this isn't a fight that I want to have. And next thing you know, like, alcohol would just slow me down. It would make me feel normal. I think that's the scariest thing with ADHD is that alcohol makes you feel normal. Like, you drink and it would give me a little bit of energy. I mean, it's not like drinking a Red Bull for me, but like, you drink alcohol, like I'd get some excitement. I'd get some energy. It produces dopamine. And I would kind of slow down some. The internal dialogue would stop. I just felt normal. It's like my brain could breathe. And it's kind of a scary feeling, like when you're going from a day where you can't control your thoughts all of a sudden to, like, your brain is taking a big deep breath. It's like, man, this feels great. Like that first beer, that second beer, how it kind of unwind you. The problem is that we have impulse control issues, how our brain functions issues. Like, there's some challenges there, and it was never just one drink. It was never just 2 drinks for me. It was, I'm going to drink until I pass out. And it was that way for a very long time. Because as soon as I would start drinking, I have some energy, I feel good, I'd be motivated, I could clean, I could focus in. And that was the scary thing, like, I could focus in. And so I would like start cleaning because I'd be like, okay, I need to clean the house, I need to do laundry, I need to do dishes, like I have this whole to-do list all of a sudden. And I would start in on that. and I would drink, and then I'd have another one, and then this whole part of my brain was like, I love how I feel. I love how I feel right now, and I think anybody with ADHD knows that feeling. For me, it was like 3, 4 beers in. I'm a little tipsy, a little wobbly, but I love how I feel. Now I want that feeling to stay. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep drinking. Like my brain says, well, if I keep drinking, this feeling's not going to go away. It doesn't think to itself of like, hey, if you keep drinking at this rate with no food in your stomach, you're probably going to get drunk and pass out. Like there's no control feeling there. And so I would just keep drinking. And next thing you know, I'm drunk and like, yeah, I might get the dishes done. I might get some laundry done, house half clean, and then that's it. Because now I'm drunk and now I'm more concerned with drinking, and it's almost like a different high, and it like would just hijack my brain. And I think that's the thing that we're not really prepared for or understand when we are ADHD is how like it overtakes our brain. It becomes the only thought process, and our brain knows that it makes us feel good. And it's like so funny because every time it's going to be different. I'm not going to drink as much. You're trying to out like smart yourself on like ways that you can drink and not get drunk. And unfortunately, you're an adult, so at any given point, you can go get alcohol. You can have alcohol DoorDash to you now. I used to I would drink and drive. Like, I call it how it is, man. I thank God I never killed anybody. I never had a DUI. I never hurt anybody. But I would drink and drive, and a lot of addicts out there drink and drive, especially alcoholics. And you just go and get some, man. I would go down to the store and get some, and now I'm on one. That was my problem. Is I always went from like, hey, I'm just gonna have a couple of drinks to I'm on one now, and I'm on one meant like I just wouldn't stop. Typically not eating at all, and I'm getting drunk, and that was the worst part. And it energized me. Same thing when it came to cocaine. It came to a lot of the other drugs out there. Like anything that produces dopamine, it's like, God, I love this feeling. It makes me feel normal. It slows me down. My brain can think, and it doesn't affect you the same way as these stigmas are. I mean, people think about like cocaine, and you're going to be just bouncing off the walls, and you're going crazy. And for somebody with ADHD, man, you snort that in such a rush of like dopamine. You're just like, man, I feel great. Let's do this. And that's kind of what it was like. I would just start microdosing it. I guess I would look at it in its own weird sense of cocaine throughout the entire day. Like as soon as that low started to hit, I would do some more. And I didn't realize even back then, like cocaine is when you mix cocaine and alcohol into your system together. They process through actually your liver at the same time, and it creates cocaine. It has a half-life of like 4 times a normal life of coke. So instead of lasting for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, now your high's lasting for like an hour. It does a lot more taxation on your heart. And the worst part is you're still using these drugs and stuff like you would without it in your system. And so you're getting even higher, which was the worst. And the problem though is it's not like you feel like Superman. You just kind of feel normal. And that's the hardest thing about it is trying to explain to somebody how I could snort cocaine and be functioning at work. How I could do an 8 ball of cocaine and not die. How I could do 2 8 balls of cocaine in a day. We're talking like 7-8 grams of coke. Because our brain harnesses this dopamine differently, we handle this dopamine differently than what somebody else's brain does. And that's where ADHD really sets us up, I think, a lot of times to fail. Like, I got diagnosed ADD at 13. I got re-diagnosed ADHD at 17. I was originally put on Ritalin, and like I could tell an instant difference. And it didn't make me smarter. The worst part about being ADHD and like undiagnosed ADHD was I knew I was smart, but I didn't know what was wrong with me. And a lot of people I've talked to with ADHD have they feel the same way. It's like, you're really intelligent and you have like some things that you're really good at. You're really good at like problem solving. There's a lot out there you're really good at, but like you just can't focus. It's like a puzzle and it's missing this piece. And man, when I would take Ritalin, my grades went up. I could study. Like I felt like a good student. I remember even telling my parents that. Like I feel like a student for once. Like I feel like a kid going to school. And it helped tremendously. And right around then, a little bit later, is when I started experimenting with alcohol. And my experimenting with alcohol, like no one ever told me, like, "Hey, you're ADHD. Be careful with alcohol and how this is going to interact with you." I don't necessarily think that knowing how ADHD affects alcohol and alcohol affects ADHD, if that would have stopped me from being an addict. I doubt it. Maybe I would have like acted a little differently with it. I don't know, but I will say this: I think it's important to know. And like I started drinking not to like calm down. I drank for the social aspect. And I think that was the part that people just don't really realize is with ADHD you have rejection sensory dysphoria. Like you're different. Like my friends were all smarter than me, and how did things come easier to them than me? And I would just feel different. And so like alcohol, like peer pressure, like you want to fit in with everybody. That's what it is. Peer pressure isn't like somebody meeting you behind the school, like, "Hey, dude, have a drink out of this bottle." I mean, that like this the way that they always presented peer pressure is such a joke. I mean, I don't know who came up with this, but they sold a really good bag of goods to somebody to actually believe that. Because peer pressure, no one's pressuring you. It's just the environment and the pressure almost that you put on yourself. Everyone else is doing it. You want to fit in. You want to make memories. You want to have fun. You want to be one of the boys. You want to be one of the girls. Whatever it is, like you want to be in the group. Like that was the problem. Like with alcohol, is I wanted to hang out with the guys that were fun and like to party. I wanted to party. I wanted to be invited to parties. And alcohol plays a huge role into that. And so, with rejection sensory dysphoria, it kind of made me feel normal. And so originally drinking alcohol wasn't to self-medicate. Like I experimented with drugs because I wanted to fit in. I experimented with drugs because, yeah, I wanted to maybe alter how I felt some. But the big thing was I wanted to fit in with people. I kind of wanted to be like accepted. And that was the hardest thing to try and explain to people because, yeah, a lot of people do smoke weed or they try different things. It's a basis of communication. Like it's really weird how it kind of works for us. And so that's really where my experimenting and stuff with alcohol came in. My drugs came in, cocaine, smoking weed. Like I didn't like how weed was, but man, stimulants they made me feel good. Like anything that could kind of like produce dopamine and stuff like that, just it made me feel good. And I liked that feeling. I liked feeling good. I liked fitting in. And I just became more and more obsessed with it, unfortunately. But again, no one told me, hey, there's this correlation here that when I met my first ex-wife, Gillian, I remember she told me, she was like, you don't have ADHD, it's all in your head. And I think that's one of the worst things that you can tell people with ADHD. I think we're at a day and age now. I'm talking, this is back in like the 2000s when my ex-wife was like, ADHD is all in your head, you don't need these meds. Just focus more and you just need to pay attention and calm down. And I'm like, okay, like these meds do that for me, but whatever. I think we're talking like over 20 years later. I think there's a bigger awareness that yes, ADHD is real. How our brain develops is real. How our brain harnesses and doesn't harness dopamine is real. And the easiest way I can explain like how dopamine is, because our brain doesn't produce dopamine quite correctly and it doesn't take it in correctly. When our brain gets flooded with dopamine, it's like putting glasses on. Like the world is very blurry. There's a lot going on. You don't know what's going on. You can't focus on anything because you can't see anything. Now all of a sudden, man, when you get a flood of dopamine, though, it's like you put glasses on and everything becomes clear and you can pick and choose what you want to do and where you want to go. It's not like you have no idea what's fully going on. You're there, there's stuff going on, but you can't focus on a single thing or truly understand anything. And that's the easiest way I can explain dopamine in just Eric terms, I put it. And so all of a sudden now I'm not taking my meds and drinking. Man, I didn't know that it created dopamine. All I knew is when I drank, it slowed me down and it kind of calmed me down. And so if I really wanted to like study on something, I would tell myself, hey, after I'm done studying, I'll drink. I'll have a beer or whatever it is, like to set this reward. And that would kind of like force me to study real quick or do homework or whatever really quick. And then I would drink. And this is when I lived in Florida. I was going to Hillsborough Community College at the time. I actually was getting good grades there. And unmedicated, I was actually getting good grades there. But it was all alcohol played a role in it. And I even remember, my ex-wife would tell me, oh, you're an alcoholic, you need to quit drinking. So I quit drinking, and then she'd tell me shit like how she misses the smell of alcohol on me or how it tastes to kiss me with alcohol on my breath. And that was like my okay to drink alcohol. Like very mixed signals. I mean, I shouldn't have been married at this age. I mean, we're talking like 19, 20. I mean, I haven't grown up at all. I don't know anything. And it became just this coping that I knew if I drank, it slowed me down. And man, drinking itself was its own addiction to me. Later on, like with drinking, the problem I also is there was like a lot of depression. Like I was a very depressed person. I struggle with MDD. I'll never forget. Again, my first ex-wife thought I had, I thought I was bipolar, man, or manic depressive or whatever. Like she would just diagnose me and stuff and tell me what I am because I'm moody and all over. Not realizing that the mood swings and all this stuff are like attributes of ADHD, especially unmedicated. And I would struggle a lot with depression. So the more I would drink, of course, it's a depressant. And at a certain point, it's going to produce a lot of dopamine, a lot of focus, but then I'd flip to the depression. And I would collapse, man. I would be sobbing. I'd be very negative. I just didn't want to exist. So later on, I mean, when I was going through my first divorce with her, I hadn't gotten back on meds again. And since I hadn't gotten back on meds again, I was drinking a lot, and that's when I got reintroduced again to cocaine. And this time when I used coke, man, it stuck. It stuck as an addiction. I loved how it made me feel. It made me feel unstoppable. It made me feel great. And I just wanted to keep doing it, and I couldn't stop. And I when I first did it, I mean, it made me feel great. It took away the depression. I loved how it made me feel. And like I remember budgeting. I mean, we got an 8-ball. We split it in half, me and Devin. And I remember like I did a couple more lines of it, how my jaw was locked, went into a shooting pool. And man, it just made me feel freaking good. And so I remember just keeping the little baggie and was like, dude, I'm just going to budget this out. I'll do this like every other weekend or whatever, once a month. And I think that's how we all start, with addicts is we're going to do it once a month or I'm going to do it however. And the problem is our brain is always on a dopamine surge with ADHD. So your brain knows that dopamine is what it needs and how it slows down and all of this. And so it's constantly looking for dopamine. And you rewire your brain by using. Your brain realizes, hey, this really produced a lot of dopamine, and your brain doesn't forget. And it's weird like how the cravings and urges are, because it's not like how people think, I don't think. It's like this internal voice where you're just like, God, that'd be great right now. And maybe I'll just have a beer. Like just one beer. Like I've been good. I haven't drank in a while. I deserve it. I'll just have that one. I can control it this time. If I tell myself I'm only going to have one, I only have one. Shoot, dude, you know what? I'll do this so that I don't go out and get another beer. I'll get a 40. I'll get a 40 of like King Cobra. I'll get a good buzz going, and that's it. Like that's it. That's all I'm going to have. And that's how the cravings actually work. Is you're having like these kind of internal conversations where you start like bartering and making deals with yourself and telling yourself how it's not going to be the same and how this is okay. And you start hyping it up and building it all up. And it's so crazy that all of a sudden you're like going to the store and gonna have a beer, and it happens. Like that's how cravings happen. It's not like you're sitting there, it's like your soul is being sucked out of you and you're just like, God, I gotta shoot up. It's this internal voice that's just like, man, you feel great. It's like just trying to talk to yourself and convince yourself and all of that. So whacked in our heads. But your brain is constantly doing that because it knows if you have that dopamine, you're gonna have that focus back. And this is all on a subconscious level. And we with ADHD don't have an impulse control. That's the frontal precortex I was talking about earlier, is that our emotions will override all of our logic. And that's where like people with ADHD, we're super emotional, we're super erratic all over. And the problem is our emotions are going to lead us. And then we will do stuff and realize like, crap, I shouldn't have done that. Because we have this logical side that does at times finally sink in. And we're like, why did we do this? This was dumb. I knew better than this. It's like this adult shows up and starts scolding the kid is kind of what it's like. And we're like, how did I get to this point again? I still run even into this, like with magic cards. I can use this as a good example. I love magic cards. Okay. And I rip them open and they're worth some money. And like, I'm looking for certain cards and man, I'll go and I'll spend $100 on these. And then I'll realize I ripped and I got like $20 worth of cards. And I don't even want any of these cards or going to use any of them. And I'm like, why did I even do this? Like, I should have just saved my money. I should have just bought the one card I wanted on eBay. But this is how addiction is. And it's really, really crazy of how we all work, of how this works in our brain. And so the same is with alcohol and with all the other drugs out there. And so, you're constantly start getting to these points where you relapse, you're beating yourself up, you feel bad, and now you feel like shit. And so you just relapse again because you feel bad, and now you need to self-soothe yourself. Because you also don't know how to regulate emotions. And alcohol and drugs helps you unhealthily regulate emotions. So very strong emotions like anger and temper, man, we just compound and just building and festering in our head, and it gets worse and worse and worse in our head. And next thing you know, we're just fuming over it. Well, you do a couple lines, and guess what? Your brain forgets about that. It had the dopamine hit, and it regulated itself out. You have a couple beers, and same thing. These are all these negative ways of how addiction like creeps into these aspects of our life. And it's not like how you picture it. It's not, this weird, just have to constantly like break into people's houses, all this stuff. It doesn't start off that way. It just starts off by like, hey, this makes me feel really good and I want this feeling. And all your brain wants is that feeling. And it's going to do whatever it takes to get that feeling. And it's so weird how it just kind of like just steals itself into your soul and you don't realize it. And at no point, ADHD or not, do you ever just go, yep, I'm an addict, I'm addicted to this. You might jokingly do it, but you will not wholeheartedly usually do it. Because you don't want to admit that you're an addict. You can quit any given time. And I know lots of addicts. I mean, I used to quit all the time, and I would quit for like an hour or 2 hours, and then I would relapse. But like that's how it was with my brain. I didn't know why I had such a draw to it. But also why I was such a functioning addict. And that's where, a lot of people don't understand. Like, how can somebody be a really functioning addict? I know a lot of really successful people that are coke addicts or alcoholics. They're drug addicts, man. But they're functioning and they're successful still because there is this weird level of medication to it in a sense. It brings this normalcy and it allows them to focus. And without focusing, you're just all over the place. You're a lot. I mean, my wife knows the days that I don't take my meds. Like, I can hide it usually for like 1 day, 2 days. Like, she knows. Because she's like, what's up with you, man? Like, you're just a lot. And I don't mean to be. But it sucks. And like, you do wish you were normal. And that's why it's like, it's kind of normal to drink. And that's the weird part too. Like, the stigma around going and buying a 12-pack is not as bad as the stigma around taking Adderall or Ritalin or Vyvanse. I think that's a part that I think is amazing. Okay, you're diagnosed ADHD, but man, you're taking legal meth. But then I go to a liquor store and I buy a fifth, and that's okay. Man, I got hammered last night. I drank half a fifth. Oh man, you tied one on, Like, that's just normal. Like, that's cool, it's acceptable. And that's part of the problem with it, is how it's acceptable. And how you're almost kind of ashamed of your meds. And then you get people who aren't ADHD and they're like, dude, can I get some Addies from you and stuff? It's like, I'm not that bad off. Like, stop. Like, this is what helps me stay normal and sane. And that, I think, is a huge struggle when it just comes to addiction. And like I mentioned earlier, like, my addiction really struggled the most and went just extreme whenever I would stop my meds. And for a little while, I could be sane and normal-ish, but after a while, it was like I couldn't function, and I just had to do normal adult tasks, and alcohol would let me do that. So I'm gonna drink some and get these tasks done. But man, as soon as I had one, I couldn't stop. That impulse override. Like, I don't understand still. Like, my wife isn't an alcoholic. Like, she'll ask me, she'll be like, you think I'm an addict or an alcoholic? I'm like, no, you're not. You're not at all. The reason I say that is I'll watch her have a glass of wine and that's all she'll drink. And I'm just like, how can you just drink that? Or she'll drink two and she'll be like, oh, I'm getting a little tipsy. I don't want to drink anymore. I'm going to feel really bad in the morning. And I'm like, but that's like where you start at. Like, you're supposed to chase that feeling. And with her, she doesn't. And she is ADHD, and that's where it's like, just because I think you're ADHD doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an alcoholic or you're going to be an addict. But you do chase dopamine. It's like having a ton of window browsers open, and you're like, your brain and your mind, it's like all these computer screens open and you're just trying to focus on something that catches your attention or your excitement. And so a lot of dopamine really does catch that for you. And I think that's also where a lot of functioning addicts are in these high stress jobs, all ever changing jobs, because it allows us to still function then correctly of construction or sales, hospitality. There's a lot going on. It allows you to be more personable, allows you to be more resilient in your own way. Like, these are all reasons that we justify using. And so we can perform what we think is better at our job, when in reality all it's doing is just building this massive addiction to us. And like, I've never had an issue afterwards of getting Adderall. And I just don't understand how people then have issues, and why psychiatrists or whoever have issues of getting their meds afterwards. I've always been very honest with my doctors. I have never lied to my doctors. And I've told them flat out, I'm like, I've been on Ritalin and Adderall XR. I tell them all the drugs I've tried. And I take Adderall instant release. I take 10 milligrams in the morning and 10 milligrams in the afternoon, 5 days a week. And I feel normal, and it gets the job done. Without it, like, I self-medicated. I was a cocaine addict, an alcoholic, and it's amazing when I take meds, I just feel normal. And I don't have a desire to use. Like, the whole thing, even with cocaine, there was so much about it I was obsessed with. The process of it, the rolling of the bill, the crushing out a line, railing a line, just feeling it in your throat and the drip and how it felt on your face. But even when I take I don't really care, because I'm normal and I want to just go on with my day. And it allows me to think a lot more logically too. And that's where I think, especially, it's not this massive hit of dopamine, which alcohol, crystal meth is a little bit different. And I've done meth before, and meth seriously felt like taking meds. Like, I hated it. It made me kind of think. It was not a drug of choice of mine. I did not like the feeling, because it was like I was on meds and I could focus, and I didn't use to focus at that time. I used to run away from everything. And so that part was really, really difficult, of not liking it and people laying that out and believing friends and stuff. But like, a majority of the stuff, though, was this huge hit with just dopamine and rush, and just felt good and just a party, and life was okay. And I used it also for a lot of trauma, and that's one of the things too, of where, again, I think ADHD and alcohol and addiction and coke and all this stuff really play hand in hand. Is people with ADHD, we don't grieve correctly, we don't deal with trauma correctly. I mean, I'm 45 years old. At 44 years old, I finally really realized, working with a therapist, that I have anxious attachment disorder, or anxious attachment style, relationship style. I wish I would have known that like 10 years ago. That would have made such a difference, of realizing that I find people who are very avoidant, because I need them to self-regulate my emotions, and especially when you don't use, like, you don't regulate your emotions anymore. Now it's like, shit, you're like looking for other people, like, use your, like, I need your help with my emotions. It's like, it sucks. Like, it's hard, and it really comes to light, but it was something I never knew about, and knew why I had like the turnover in relationships that I had, and the way that I self-sabotage so much. And that part really, it sucked, and when you do get sober, you're not normal again. You get back on your meds, but you got to really work on yourself. And I think that was so key with my addiction and getting sober, was learning that, hey, okay, I have a lot of trauma. I lost a wife to suicide. I lost a dad to suicide. I haven't grieved this properly. Like, I've struggled with a lot of things, and I really need to find what therapy works for me. Talk therapy has really helped a lot. There's a lot of healing with talk therapy. Even doing podcasts like this, and me talking and not having a guest on it and just sharing, is therapeutic. Talking itself is very therapeutic, I've noticed, at least for me, and I know it is for a lot of people. And going to a therapist and just getting the answers, and finding things to work on and to find understanding in. I mean, I really have dug in a lot when it came to anxious attachment style. And how to self-soothe the child inside me, and to really understand the trauma that I've been through, and to heal, because this was all stuff that I ran from with addiction, and addiction overshadowed it so much that I never had a chance to heal it, and I didn't need to heal any of it, because I was self-medicating in a sense. And all it did is compound. And the worst is, you wake up at 40 years old, 45 years old, whatever, man, and realize, dude, I'm still screwed up. Because that's the effects of addiction. I think, we don't realize that. Like, yeah, you do get sober. And when you get sober, like, it's a fight, man. Like, 5 years into my sobriety, sobbing at AA, asking for a sponsor again because, like, my life kept repeating cycles over again. And, like, I wasn't a dry drunk. I'm like, I've done the program. Like, I do all this stuff. Like, I'm not a dry drunk. Why do I feel this way? And not realizing that a lot of it's trauma and a lot of it needed therapy. And it's just been a process. And it's also hard with ADHD because, like, you go to therapy and you just want an instant fix. Like, if I go to therapy 3 times, I should be fixed, right? Like, we're good, right? Like, I feel good. I notice some changes, so I can stop. Where there's so much more underneath that you have to do. And even now, like, I'm in the middle of doing EMDR therapy, and the first one I thought was really good. Last two were so, and I'm like, maybe I'm not doing it right. And I'm like, no, you just got to keep doing this because there's so much still that I have to address that still self-sabotages, relationships, and even with me and my wife will cause tension sometimes. And it's not her, it's me. And it's me realizing, like, hey, I can't control her emotions, or I can't control how she feels, and I can't run away. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think that's a challenge when you do get sober, is you can't run away anymore. Like, it was so easy to be a coward as an addict. You just use and disappear into yourself. And then you blame it on your addiction. You blame it on the fact that you're high and you don't care, and it changes and alters your personality. But, man, when you get sober, it's like you have to be normal again. You have to be real again. And it's really, really difficult. And it's like trying to learn all over again. And you're an adult, and so you already have these habits formed and these thought patterns formed, and it's becomes more of a struggle in a lot of senses, but it is worth it. And I think that's the thing that people have to realize is, like, it's worth it. And it's worth getting a diagnosis. Like, if you've never been diagnosed and you think you're ADHD, don't self-diagnose yourself with ADHD, because I could do a whole podcast on, like, the issues of self-diagnosing yourself, because ADHD does mirror a lot of different things out there. Like, truly get a diagnosis from a doctor, and let's, go down those rabbit holes. And it's okay if you're misdiagnosed. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize is, like, sometimes we are misdiagnosed, and sometimes, but know what you're fighting for, and what good is, and what you want to feel, and don't be afraid to communicate. Don't be afraid to fire your therapist and find a new therapist. Don't be afraid to change and evolve. I went to a therapist when I hit my 5-year mark. I went back into therapy. I had a lot of challenges. Talk therapy. Her name was Susan. Was amazing. Really made a lot of understandings how I haven't really grieved my dad's death. And People of a Lie was an amazing book. I read those and like just did a good amount of work on myself. And I stopped the work. And let's face it, it's hard because therapy is expensive, especially if you don't have insurance that covers it. It's like $180 a pop, man. And I felt good at that time, so I stopped going, and I would go every now and then when I kind of needed a checkup from the neck up, and I would go and see Susan, and then I ended up seeing now Lisa, who's my new therapist, and I like Lisa. She's the one that really brought me the awareness of anxious attachment style and ways to work with anxious attachment style, and it's helped a lot and really has opened up my eyes a lot to how I have self-sabotage with things and how I need to learn to calm myself and understand my triggers and understand how I am as a human being. But again, this is a different therapist than the other one. And like sometimes therapists are amazing at a time and sometimes you outgrow them, and that's all okay. The biggest thing is like I never wanted to go back and use. Once I got sober, I never wanted to go back and use. I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to feel normal and excited like I did on drugs. And it's possible. I know a lot of people that aren't on drugs and they have amazing lives. Like, I wanted that life. And I finally have it now, and I think I fight for it. I have a lot of anxiety still based around it because now I have such a fear of what happens if it goes away. And I have to keep fighting for it. It has to be more and more. Because what if it settles and it's not good? It's weird how your brain just screws itself up. But it's like, I've never had this real desire to go back and use at all because I do ultimately love my life. I love what I've created. I love how my life is. I love my wife and my family and my house. And we just rented this studio and I have an area to go work at now. And, I'm starting I have an app in the works that I can't wait to release this app out. I think it's going to be amazing, really change how people heal with therapy and trauma and grief. So I'm really excited about that. Like I have a lot of things in the work, and I really love how life is, and I know that it can be taken away at any moment. I'm very grateful for it, and I think that's one of the biggest things, even that I have to keep working on, is like more of that gratitude journal. Even with ADHD, because it's like with ADHD, we're just kind of looking almost for that next high. That's the one thing that sucks. Is like, especially if you're an entrepreneur and stuff, you business idea after business idea. I want to go do this. I want to go do this, and it's all we need instant results. And one of the big things that has helped me in sobriety too is just having a gratitude, a time for gratitude of really looking back and going, hey, I'm grateful for this and look at what I have accomplished. And if it was all taken away, that's okay. And here's where I can grow more and here's where I can be more. And not putting this hard pressure on yourself to change overnight. And that's the thing that has helped me a lot. And that's probably the biggest area I have still in my life to work on, is realizing that of like, I don't have to change the world overnight. I don't have to put so much unbearable pressure on me now to like catch up to where I should be. That is a hard thing, man. When you get sober, of looking around and going, man, like I need to like catch up because I just wasted 20 years of my life. So I have to cram 20 years of growth in like a year. I mean, it's weird how our brain is that way. It's like we're trying to catch up to what I don't know. But it's this weird thing in our head that we're trying to play catch up, and it adds in this different stress. And the one thing I will say that I am grateful for, though, and I can add this in my gratitude journal, is like I'm grateful though that I actually deal with this stress now, and I can talk it out, and I can talk it out with my wife, and she can tell me I'm silly and goofy or whatever for having these thoughts, instead of so believing them that I have to numb them. Because that's what alcohol and all the drugs were. Is it was just numbing. It was self-medication. And, I've never been ashamed of my medication. Even with all the, like, social media stuff I do. I always love it because I do get so many people like, oh, you're still high. You're taking legal meth. You're taking an amphetamine salt and all this. And I'm just like, do you know how this works on a human's brain with ADHD? Because you don't. Unless you're a doctor, don't tell me how it works. Unless you're specialized in this and you can tell my doctors something that they obviously don't know that I've had, then maybe I would listen. But until then, no. And that's the thing. It's like I like being normal. I like being me. And that's the other thing too. Is like you come up with these excuses of like why you don't want to be medicated and stuff. And like, I'm not a zombie when I take my meds. I sleep good when I take my meds. And the hardest thing I have with medication, and this was the same thing even like with cocaine and alcohol and stuff like this, is like, it made me feel like I had control. And so, like even now, it's like easier to take a nap. It's easier to sleep. It's easier to relax with meds in me than without meds in me. Because it kind of makes all that anxiety go away. But again, stimulants do jack you in different ways with like cortisol levels up. So definitely make sure you're taking like magnesium and zinc and a lot of the other stuff just to help your brain. Because your brain does need that stuff too to make melatonin. But I really enjoy sharing on stuff like this. I started a new series of trauma talk on my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out Eric B. Zink. At my studio here, I've started having people come in and interviewing them and having them share, trauma or their life story. And it's been an experience so far. And I'm really enjoying this part of my life. It's a lot of stress because I'm kind of like readjusting stuff, and I'm like, what if this doesn't work? Like I'm really having if this works, this would be like its own little business, but what if it doesn't work? Like there's always stress with stuff, and I think that's part of the fun is when you look back and you're like, hey, I made it. You're still stressed, but you're like, hey, I made it. What if it gets taken away? I don't know where that always comes from, but that is like my biggest thing of like, oh my God, what if I go broke overnight? Figure it out. I mean, that's one thing I will say that I've learned as being an addict. And I think any addict will tell you is like, we always were able to figure it out. As an addict, it was like you never struggled about money because you figured it out somehow. And even now I look at it of like, dude, if I really needed money, like I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to be that bad. It's not the end of the world. I keep telling myself that because it's like it's hard because the addict side and ADHD, it's like even with work and business and all this, it's never enough. Like it has to be more. And what is that point of enough? I don't know. I keep telling myself it's a different figure and a different number, and that number just keeps growing. And it's like, hey, worst case scenario, I'm sober, I have a clear head, and I can figure it out. And that's what it's all about. And that's why I do enjoy sharing. I enjoy doing these podcasts. I enjoy being that I'm actually like been good about the podcast. I know after Soft White Underbelly, I got really motivated to do all this again. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a podcast every Wednesday. Originally, when I started these back, I'm still only on season 1. I'm not going to start season 2 until January. I'll start season 2. But I was like, I'm going to film a podcast every single Wednesday. And I actually build these up. I've gotten to the point now. I'm really proud of myself and my ADHD self. Like I have content as of right now. I have my content actually out like a week, and so like if I didn't do anything this week, it's okay. I'm not behind. So that's kind of a good feeling. So that's kind of some of the growth that I have seen. But I am excited for where this goes. My next one, my next podcast, I hope to do with a good friend of mine. I'm going to do it on weed addiction because I just like sharing other people's stories and just talking about myself and I. So I'm really excited about sharing his story, see how this all goes. If you haven't followed along on this podcast, check it out, follow it, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, it's just one day at a time. And anybody who's going through it, I hope that you can relate to some of this stuff and it helps you just make more sense of life because that's what it's about.